his wife where they are.
This is like the most well-behaved congregation right now. Why not?
That was obviously me, right?
I think so.
We'll try again. Friends, ceremony here, microphone ready.
Is his mic on?
Okay, I'm waiting. Isn't the microphone working at all? Can I try it again? Okay. Moments of suspense in our congregation Shir Hadash. Can you try it again? Open again? It's not closed, it's open.
Do you want me to nigun?
They figure that out. They're taking this one.
Okay. We'll need another one.
Can you hear me now? Wonderful. Technology works. Let's start this morning with some melody, so we can transition from the sound of a broken microphone into the sound of our whole and loving voices. morning, everyone.
Or.
Shabbat
Or.
Shalom. You can say Shabbat Shalom out loud.
Shabbat Shalom.
Oh, it's good to start Shabbat with high energies. And this is a wonderful Shabbat. Shabbat of Parashat Kititze, a very special Torah portion that we are reading this week. And a very special Shabbat because we are celebrating the coming up to the Torah of a child of our community. Amanda is coming up to the Torah, and we are so excited. We would like to invite you during the service to use only one device, that one. So your cell phone devices, please put them aside. And don't worry, we are documenting this morning. So you just can focus on being here, fully present. And with all that said, let's start praying together.
Every morning when we awake, we take a moment to express our gratitude for being alive and having God's trust to be who we are and becoming the best versions of ourselves. We continue on page 186 for Modeh Ani.
That's in the blue bracketed numbers.
What a gift it is to be in community, a community that we are a part and build together. Hine Matov, how wonderful it is that we are here together. Please join us on page 188. Blessing for the well-being of our bodies on page 194. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, Sovereign of the universe, who formed the human body with skill, creating the body's many pathways and openings. It is well known before your throne of glory that if one of them be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. Baruch atah Adonai, Hey, Kal
בשר ומפליא לעשות.
In the book of Numbers, we are commanded to wear fringes upon our shoulders. These fringes remind us of all of the mitzvot, the commandments within our Jewish tradition that serve as a blueprint for living. At this time, I'd like to invite up Amanda's parents, Laura and Roger, to share a blessing for this sacred moment, as well as present her with her talit.
Hi.
Our wish and blessing for you is to always be you. You, Amanda, have been strong-willed since the day that you were born and have gone for what you want. We hope you never change. We hope that you're going to grow up to be a powerful woman who will positively impact the world. It's just in you. We saw it in preparing for this day, and we see it in everything you do. You are loving. You are the most loving girl. You care about everyone. You want to help others. Your love and thoughtfulness are meaningful to us all.
You are determined. You want to try everything and give it your all. I think that times you wish there were 10 days in a week or 48 hours in a day so you could squeeze even more into your life. Live life, try adventures while you're young, continue to take risks and have fun. You are opinionated. There is no question that you are opinionated. You speak up and speak your voice, and when needed, you speak up for others. Never stop. You are an old soul. You relate to us adults. We forget at times how young you are. Sometimes you are too aware of the world. Don't grow up too fast, and keep engaging and asking questions. Apply the wisdom that you have to help others. You bring so much laughter to this world. You are a character, no doubt about it. You light up a room and you light up our lives. Keep entertaining us.
Most importantly, you are very much yourself. There's no trail you are following. You are making your own path. Look at you up here today, being yourself. The first girl in our family to get a talit, and you will stand strong when you wear it. You are not afraid to be you, and that is something that makes us very proud. We admire who you have been all your life and who you are becoming. There was no one like you in this world, and we all benefit because of that. Don't ever lose the Amanda spirit. We are proud of you for being you, for what you're accomplishing today, and for what we know you'll achieve in your future. We love you and are so, so proud of you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher kitanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu l'hit atef v'tzitzit.
Amen.
service continues on page 196 with the blessing for our souls. Source of all creation, sovereign of all souls, praise are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai, asher beyado nefesh kol chai, baruch kol basar ish.
The daily miracles are an opportunity to acknowledge all of the sometimes forgotten little blessings we have in life. Please join us on page 198.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish the day from night.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who lifts up the fallen.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who made me in the image of God.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given me free will.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me a Jew.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives Israel with strength.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor.
We're continuing on page 203.
I am a Jew because the faith of Israel demands no abdication of my mind. I am a Jew because the faith of Israel requires all the devotion of my heart. I am a Jew because in every place where suffering weeps, the Jew weeps. I am a Jew because at every time when despair cries out, the Jew hopes. I am a Jew because the world of Israel is the oldest and the newest. I am a Jew because Israel's promise is the universal promise. I am a Jew because for Israel, the world is not completed, we are completing it. I am a Jew because for Israel, humanity is not created, we are creating it. I am a Jew because Israel places humanity and its unity above the nations and above Israel itself. I am a Jew because above humanity, image of the divine unity, Israel places the unity which is divine.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, aker tzivanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. O Adonai our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths and mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants and descendants of your people Israel, may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel.
ברוך אתה אדוני, המלמד תורה לעמו ישראל.
We continue on page 206. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the deed for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all.
We'll now turn our Sidurim to page 212 for the blessing for the Psukei de Simra, the section in our service in which we try to do the work of uplifting our souls. We understand that moments of joy and connection don't just happen to us. They are mostly a product of hard work, of trying again and again and again. And so during this time we try to allow these melodies that even if you don't know the words, I'm sure you can join us for the melodies and try to connect with your soul, with the connection that happens when we are singing together. Page 212. We extol you and proclaim your sovereignty, for you are the source of life in the universe, one God, life of the universe, praise and glorious ruler. Your name is eternal. Melech meulal batishbachot, Melech meulal batishbachot, Baruch atah Adonai, Melech meulal batishbachot. Turn our Sidurim to page 214. We start the Psukei de Simra in Shabbat with Mizmor Shir Leyom HaShabbat, Psalm 92. Mizmor, Mizmor Shir, Shir Leyom HaShabbat. Mizmor, Mizmor Shir, Shir Leyom HaShabbat. Mizmor, Mizmor Shir, Shir Leyom HaShabbat. Mizmor, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. You're at the top of page 215. Happy are those who dwell in your house. Ashrae yoshvei beitecha, odeh Alleluia Selah. Ashrae yoshvei beitecha, odeh Alleluia Selah. Ashrae, Ashrae, Ashrae yoshvei beitecha. Ashrae, Ashrae,
Ashrae yoshvei beitecha.
those who dwell in your house, they shall sing your praises forever. Happy are those who dwell in your house, they shall sing your praises forever. They shall sing your praises forever. We invite you to continue with the silent reading of Ashrae. Our pages 215, 216. You can follow along the words of our tradition, or alternatively, take a moment to think about what's that place, that space, that state of mind in which you find joy. The bottom of page 216. ואנחנו נברך יה מעתה ועד עולם, הללויה. And on page 218, Psalm 150. נשמת כל חי, תברך את שמך, אדוני אלוהינו ברוח כל בשר, תפאר ותרומן זכרך מלכנו תמיד. We're on page 219, Master of all generations, who is praised in a multitude of praises, who guides the world with abundant loving kindness, and all creatures with mercy. Adonai neither slumbers nor sleeps. God awakens the sleeping, arouses those who slumber, gives speech to the mute. And God loosens the bonds of captives. God supports the fallen and strengthens those who are bent over. You alone do we acknowledge. Our service continues on page 222 with the blessing that concludes the Psukei de Simra. שוכן עד מרום בקדוש שמו, בכתוב רעיונות צדיקים באדוני, לישרים נבע תהילה, בפי שרים תתהלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתאמן, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמקלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל, ברנה יתפאר שמך מלכנו, בכל דור ודור, ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל, המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ, כי לך נאה, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו, שילוש בחלל וזמרה, עוז וממשלה, נצח גדולה וגבורה, תהילה ותפארת, קדושה ומלכות, ברכות והודעות, מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול ותשבחות, אל ההודעות, אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אלכי העולמים.
We continue on page 224 for the Hadash. Yikada ve'yitkadash shemei rava
Amen.
ve'alma divera hirute ve'amlich mahute behayechon uvyomechon uchayetecho beit Yisrael Ba'agala, ba'agala, ubizman kavim, ve'imeru, Amen. Yehesh bnei Rabba mevarach, le'alam u'al me'amaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, ve'yishtavach, ve'yitpa'ar, ve'yitrama, ve'yitnaseh, Ve'yitadar, ve'yitaleh, ve'yitalal, shemei dekudisha brihu, le'elal min kol birhata ve'shirata, tushbehata ve'nechemata, damiran bi'alma, ve'imeru, Amen. Please rise for the Barhu on page 226. Please be seated.
At this time, we'd like to invite up all recent and upcoming B'nai Mitzvah students to join us in our prayer of creation, Yotzer Or, page 228. There are a lot of recent and upcoming B'nai Mitzvah who are here this morning. Please join us.
We are continuing on page 231.
Love your neighbor as yourself, you said. In light blinded we saw that inner and outer worlds are one, as you are one. You spoke and we wrote. We reached for you down the centuries, your light moving before us as we climbed, fell back and climbed again. Your Sinai of life. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'amo Yisrael be'ahava.
Then we're still reading to page 232 for the Shema. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Please continue on page 234. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol me'odecha ve'hayu hadivarim ha'ele asher anochi Metzaveha hayom al levaveha veshinantam levaneha vedibarta bam veshivteha beveteha uvlechteha vaderech uvshokbeha uvkumeha ukshartam leot al yadeha Vehayu letotafot ein einecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha. Adonai said to Moses as follows, Speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fingers on the corners of their garments throughout the ages. Let them attach a cord, a blue line at the fringe at the end on each corner. That shall be your fringe. Look at it and recall all the commandments of Adonai and observe them, so that you do not follow your heart and your eyes in your lustful urge. Leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai ve'yitem kedoshim le'Elohehem. Ani Adonai Elohehem. Asher hotzeiti ethem me'eretz Mitzrayim lehiot lahem Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Adonai Elohechem emet. Emet v'yatzid bahu b'chaviv ben ravad beto be'yafe.
We're continuing on page 237.
If people fall, can they not also rise? If they break away, can they not return? The stork in the sky knows when to migrate, and the dove and the swallow know the season of return. What human instinct knows the season of return? No. What human instinct knows the time to return back? What cue sparks the conscience of the soul? We pray to sense this day anew, attuned to the call of sacred living.
Life without integrity is like loosely hanging threads, easily fraying from the main cloth, while in acts of piety we learn to understand that every instant is like a thread, raveling out of eternity to form a delicate tassel. We must not cast off the threads, but weave them into the design of an eternal fabric. Each day points to eternity, The fate of all time depends upon a single moment.
We continue on page 240. Ya ba ba bim bim bam, ya ba ba bim bam, ya ba ba bim bim bam, ya ba ba bim bam. Ay 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 ay, ya ba ba bim bam. Ay 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 ay, ya ba ba bim bam. Mi hamoha, bailim Adonai. Mi hamoha, nedar bar kodesh. Nurat hilo, o sefele. Nurat hilo, o sefele. Shira hadasha, shivahu geulim. Lashimha, lashimha, asfa hayam. Yahad kulam, kulam hodu. Hodu, hodu, vahim lehu ve'amru.
Adonai loch le'olam ha'ed. Adonai loch le'olam ha'ed.
Zoy Yisrael, Huma, Be'ezrat Yisrael, U'v'techinu mecha, Yehuda v'Yisrael, Goleinu, Adonai tzeva'ot shemo, Kadosh Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael.
We rise together for the Amidah, beginning on page 242. We will continue on the even number page throughout page 248, and then continuing to pray silently until page 260. Open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, ve'Elohei avoteinu, ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Mekonei Hakol, Bezocher Chasdei Avot, Ve'imahot, Umevi Geula, Livnei Bneihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Be'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mehaye hakol atah, Rav lehoshia, Morid atah, Mehakel hayim behesed, Mehaye hakol berachamim rabim, Tomech noflim verofeh holim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Rishenei afar, Mihamocha ba'al divrut, Umidol melach, Melech memit umekayem, Umatzmiach Yeshua, Ne'eman atah l'hachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol.
מקדש את שמך בעולם,
כשם שמקדישים אותו
בשמי מרום,
ככתוב היד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש קדוש קדוש
אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ, כבודו.
אדיר אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מה אדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני במקומו, אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו ומלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם,
ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור. הללויה, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, בשבחך אלוהינו בפינו לא ימוש, לעולם ועד.
ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Continue with the silent reading of תפילת עמידה. אלוהינו ולאבותינו במדינתנו. You may be seated. We're at the bottom of page 260. יהיו לרצון אמרי פי, בהגיון ליבי, לפניך אדוני צורי בגואלי, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer.
עושה שלום במרומיו, עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, הוא יעשה שלום, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. Oh, say shalom. Bimromav, Ose Shalom. Bimromav, Uyase, Uyase, Uyase Shalom. Uyase, Uyase, Uyase Shalom. Uyase, Uyase, Uyase Shalom. Aleinu. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down.
Well, now come our Sidurim to page 362. In order to commence our Torah service, we would love to invite the entire family to participate in the transferring of the Torah and those that will help us opening the Ark.
Ein kamocha b'ma'anim Adonai, v'ein kema'asecha, malechutecha, malechut kol olamim, u'mimshatzecha v'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai himnoch leolam va'ed, Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, u'devar Adonai miYerushalayim. Baruch
Please rise.
Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael ve'kedushato.
Our tradition teaches us that Torah was received at Sinai. Moshe קיבל תורה מסיני ומסרה ליהושע. And Moses received it from Sinai and transferred it to Joshua, and Joshua to the elders, and the elders to the prophets, and the prophets to the people of the great assembly, to the rabbis, and the rabbis to our people. Wait a second. We have been waiting 2,000 years for this moment. I'll tell you in a second. The prophets to the people of the great assembly, and the people of the great assembly to the rabbis. And the rabbis pass it to the people of Israel. And it is our obligation to transfer Torah to our children. Vishenantam levnotecha. And you shall repeat these laws, these legacies to your children. And so your parents are fulfilling today the mitzvah of transferring Torah to you, Amanda.
Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadlu la Adonai iti, unero mema Shemo yachdav.
מזמור לדוד, אבו לאדוני ונהלים, אבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז, אבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, השתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש, ידי ועל מים, אלא על כבוד עירים, אדוני, אדוני, על מים רבים. ידה לי 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 לי, ידה לי 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 לי. מזמור לדוד, אבו לאדוני ונהלים, אבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז. היי 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 היי. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ay la 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 la. Ay la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. La 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 May be seated.
My Torah portion, Ki Tetzei, takes place in the book of Deuteronomy. Moses is continuing his final speeches before he dies. It has 74 mitzvot within it. The main sections of the portion include an instance about a woman being taken captive by a man. If this happens, she must stay with him for a month and cry to her family. If she is let go, she must be let go as a free woman, not as a slave. She will only marry him if he wants her to. There was another discussion about if parents have a troublesome kid, they must take him in front of the authorities and have him stoned to death. We also learned that if a person finds someone's lost ox, sheep, or garment, they must return it to the person no matter the situation. When taking young birds from a nest, you must send the mother bird away first. Finally, all generations of Jews must remember the cruelty of Amalek as the Israelites were leaving Egypt. I was most interested in the section about women being taken captive because it made me feel like I could have a voice for the women in the past who did not. There are many different ways to interpret what the Torah thinks about women. Some might think the Torah is trying to protect women. If a man wanted to keep her as his wife, he would have to cut off all her hair and let her fingernails grow long to make her look ugly so no other man would want to try to take her away from him. Others might think the Torah is wrong for saying a man can take a woman away from her family for a month or longer and marry her without her agreement. If you look in the Torah, there are no female narrators. There are very few strong women in the Hebrew Bible, but a lot of strong men. We no longer live in a world where people have to write a woman's story for her. The Torah is very inconsistent with its views on what women are capable of doing. I think the Torah is often wrong in the way it views women. In most cases, the perception women are talked about echoes the notations of women staying home and raising kids while the man is off doing all the work for the family. In today's world, though, women are doing a lot more than that. For example, my mom has made an amazing living without having to depend on a man to help her. She is raising 2 great kids and has an amazing partner, my dad, by her side. She is in a very important leading position in her job. She goes out in front of big companies to market without any fear, and she kicks butt at it all. She does all this while making sure her family is okay at home and makes sure she always has time for us. I'm very proud of my mom for being able to do these things that women in the past and women in the Torah couldn't do. In fact, women in the Torah were taken in and forced to stay with the man that took her in. Once women were married, their only job was to have children and take care of the kids while they grew up. Women didn't have a say in what they wanted or didn't want. This demonstrates that women had little voice. The only part of my Torah portion that I read where a woman had a voice was where she could initiate divorce. It seems like women were only used to have kids and they didn't have a choice if they wanted the kid. This really disturbs me because sometimes that's what it feels like today. In some states, women do not have a choice if they want the child or not. Another example is equal pay between men and women. For example, until recently, the U.S. men's soccer team got paid a lot more than the women, even though the women was a lot better. We still haven't had our first U.S. president. These are just a few things that represent inequality that women face today. While reading my Torah portion, it made me feel really bad about the women in our Hebrew Bible, and it inspired me to do my part in helping new moms and babies. I wanted to do something important, so my Mitzvah project is partnering with Sacred Heart to help support new moms and babies that might be having a hard time right now. I am collecting goods and money to help support families that might need help to get them started in the next chapter of their lives. I hope you can all help. My Torah portion has made me feel so much I didn't know I could feel to a piece of paper. Even while talking about it with Rabbi PJ, I wanted to yell. I didn't know I was allowed to be mad at the Torah. There are even nights that I laid awake in my bed thinking about these women and how they must have felt. But I am very grateful that I do have a voice and can give a voice to women who were silenced within our tradition.
Yishar koach. So I'm supposed to follow on that. I'll change the topic. Right? We're going to talk about something else. There is actually sorry, friends, I wasn't fully mentally ready to adjust the physical position of my microphone. Can you hear me well? Good. This is wonderful. We have the tradition at Shir Hadash of studying some Torah on Saturday mornings. And this Torah portion, Parashat Kititze, is a very, very special Torah portion. And one of the reasons this is a very special Torah portion, how many mitzvot do we have in this Torah portion? 74, you said that pretty clear. So many rules, so many commandments appear in this Torah portion. And they are in a variety of topics. And you were speaking about the commandment that appears in the context of war. What happens when we go to war, when someone goes to war, and we forget that we have any boundaries? When we feel in certain situations that there are no limitations to our power. And the good news is that women, we hope they have a voice in our society. It's not always true, and we still need to work for that. The bad news is that the lack of boundaries for people, for us, is something that exists in every single society and something that we need to deal with all the time. So I want to offer some thoughts around that, and I want to do some guided reading with you. The Torah says in the chapter 21, verse 11, "Velakachta lecha isha," and you took a woman. Now, says Rashi is the medieval commentator, Scripture is speaking only in view of men's evil inclination. Have you heard about the good and evil inclination? You have seen that, right? Like the two little angels that appear in the movies, like the good angel and the bad angel. Now, we tend to think that they are somewhere else, or they belong to someone else. But the idea that Torah tries to convey again and again is that we are constantly dealing with good leads, good inclinations in our lives, and sometimes we listen, maybe too much, to the evil inclination. Now, I'm not talking about evil inclinations that, I know, particularly malicious, but our shortcomings, or our inner sense of justification. When we say, well, I did this or that, in the mind of that moment, so I allow myself to scream to my partner, or to be particularly difficult with my child, or at the time in which I could have chosen to be loving, I decided to be judgmental. That's the kind of thing that we are dealing with in our lives all the time. And Rashi says that in the context of this thing about the woman, Torah is talking about the evil inclination of these men, or men, in this case. For the Holy One, blessed be He, says Rashi, in the 12th century, would not permit for him to take a woman as his wife, but nevertheless, this man would do it. Now, see what's happening. Rashi, like 12th century, 12th century commentator, he doesn't feel comfortable with this idea. And he's saying, no. There should be a different explanation to this. We need to explain it differently. And the way in which he explains it, he says, well, Torah is dealing with an after-the-fact situation, after you have done wrong. So he's saying this is, to start with, wrong, and then Torah is dealing with something that's been wrong. But the important thing that Rashi, and I said I'm going to go in a different topic, and here I go. The important thing that Rashi is bringing is that we have choices, that we can decide to listen to certain inclinations that we have in our lives, or to other inclinations that we have in our lives, and how we make those choices. Now, the first verse, this is the second verse in the Torah portion. The first verse in the Torah portion says, when you go out to war on your enemies. When you go out to war on your enemies. And there is a question about the word you. Now, the word you in English reads as singular or plural. But in this context, the Hebrew is kititze. It's a singular you. So some people say, well, because it's the unity of the nation when we are dealing with a big challenge. That's a possible explanation, doesn't have lots of support in our tradition. An alternative explanation comes from the Baal Shem Tov. He says, the Torah speaks in the singular, kititze, you, in singular, because it wishes to point out that man and woman has no worse enemy than his own evil impulse. Now, an interesting idea comes also from the Lubavitcher rabbi. כי תצא למלחמה על אויביך. When you go out to war, above or upon your enemies. Now, the use of the word upon or above, on your enemies, it's kind of weird. I don't know, not a native, but doesn't sound weird to you? Okay, it sounds weird in all languages, including Hebrew. It's not a normal way to use the expression to do anything with anyone else, upon or on someone else. So says the Lubavitcher rabbi, the Hebrew phrase, al oyevecha, on your enemies, can also be understood in the literal sense of on top of your enemies. In every battle, the way to achieve victory is to gain the higher ground. We must never stoop to the level of evil to fight it on its own terms. In the words of our sages, one who wrestles with a filthy person becomes dirted as well. Rather, we should rise above it, affirming our belief that there is no true existence other than God, and that nothing contrary to his goodness and truth has any real power. When our going to war is in a manner of on your enemies, we are guaranteed, he says, God shall deliver them into your hands. Now, what does it mean to go on, upon, on top of our enemies when the enemy is ourselves? Any idea? Any comment? Silence, crickets. I'll answer to myself. It wasn't a rhetorical question. I was actually curious about any opinion. If you have one, love to hear that. No. Okay. Glad that we are having this dialogue. You know, once Rabbi Michelle Obama said, right, when they go low, we go high. Right? When they go low, we go high. And that is very easy when we are talking about someone else. Because then, not easy, but easy at least to after the fact visualize. You can say, okay, that was so low. I'm going to bring myself above that situation. It's a hard exercise, but it's easier to recognize that kind of situation. Now, what about ourselves? Can we go back to our own actions and reactions and recognize moments in which we have acted as our worst enemies, in which we have gone low? Are we accustomed to that practice at all? Are we even aware that we are constantly, I don't want to use the word fighting, but to some extent trying to navigate different possible reactions? I think that there's one more mitzvah that appears in this Torah portion. Rabbi Schwartz spoke about that yesterday. And I was very tempted to go into that. It's a beautiful mitzvah, which is the mitzvah of returning lost items. Doesn't seem to be a big deal. Now, the Mishnah has an entire tractate talking about how you are supposed to return a lost item. And the first component of that mitzvah is that you are not supposed to ignore a thing that you recognize for it to be lost. Now, an interesting thing is when we are those that we are lost, and how we actually face the challenges that we are dealing with. And the mitzvah, when you encounter, when you recognize a lost item, is to return it. Even when someone Ived et atzmo ladat, says the Talmud. When someone loses himself completely, when it's someone else, we're supposed to recognize that and help that individual to find himself. This is a side comment to the mental health crisis that we have in our world, and in particular in the United States. We have responsibility as a society to help people, to create a system that help people to find themselves. Leave it there. Let's go back to ourselves now. When we are those that we are lost, that are lost, this is the month of Elul, the month before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the high holidays. The entire enterprise of the high holidays is teshuvah, is to return. And the idea of returning lost items is leashiv, teshuvah, abeda, lost items. I think that the challenge of this Torah portion is for us to look at the mirror and to recognize our wars, to recognize the things that we are fighting in our life, to recognize the opportunities for growth, the opportunities to offer different answers for things that we believe we have answered already, and that's it. There's nothing to ask anymore. This is the time to rethink and hopefully to return lost items, particularly if we are those that are lost. Shabbat Shalom.
So for our first Aliyah, I would like to invite up Aviva Paul and Jamie Taylor to come up and do the blessing for before the reading of the Torah. Aviva is instrumental in helping our Kulanu program, which will begin tomorrow, and Jamie helped plan a wonderful program that happened last night. Ta'amdu Aviva bat Yonatan v'Nadiva Zayit v'Chaya bat Moshe Harishon. And Kyle is going to come and read. Baruch Adonai Hamborach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Vecha untano Adonai Elohecha bayadecha veshivita shivyo ra'ita bashivya eshet yefatoar v'hashakta va v'lakachta leha leisha v'haveta el tov beitecha v'gilcha et rosha v'aseta et ziponecha.
Beautiful.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Thank you both. We're going to have you come over this way. Ya'amdu Alexander ben Aharon Udevora bat Shmuel Hasheni.
Baruch Adonai Hamburah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamburah Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'anim Natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Behesira et simlat shivya me'aleha ve'yashva beveteha uvalta et aviha ve'et ima yirach yamim ve'ahar kain tavo eleha uvalta ve'hayata leha Leisha Behaya Imlo Hafatsta Ba Beshilata Lenafsheha Umahor Lo Tim Kerena Ba Kasef Lo Titamer Ba Tahat Asher Inita Ki Tehiyena Lais Shete Nashim Ha'at ahuva v'hasnu'ah v'ha'at shenua v'yadu lo banim ha'ahuva v'hasnu'ah v'yah ha'ben ha'bechor lasnu'ah.
Baruch.
Wait, I need my glasses. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam notam b'tuchenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. And it is a tradition to come up to the Torah after 70 years of your bar mitzvah. How old are you?
83.
83. So we are fulfilling additional tradition, which is the anniversary year of your bar mitzvah year. So they say, we pray, Keshnod Chayecha Yosifu Lecha Chaim, may the years of your lifespan add you life, says the psalmist, add you wisdom and connection and many, many naches, as this one of coming up to the Torah in the bat mitzvah of your granddaughter. Mishaberach Avotenu B'Imotenu, Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, may the one who bless our ancestors will bless. What's your Hebrew name? Alexander. Yeah. And your parents?
I think Aaron, and I don't know my mother's.
What, the normal
Notre.
Notre?
Notre.
And your name?
Devorah.
Devorah, but?
I don't know.
Your parents' names, not in Hebrew. Just your
Oh,
name.
Clara
Claire
and Sam.
and Sam. May the blessed Holy One protect you from any trouble or distress, and may God gives you naches, many, many celebratory occasions, and bless you in all your endeavors, together with all Israel. And I say, Amen. Congratulations, Mazal Tov.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Tamar bat Alexander Udevora Hashlishi.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. v'haya beyom hanhilo et banav et asher yahiyeh lo yuha levaker et ben ha'ahuva al penei ven hasnua habehor ki et habehor ben hasnua yakir latet lo pi shnayim poho asher yimatzeh lo kihu reshit ono lo mishpat habehora ki yahiyeh leish ben sover umore enenu shomeya beko aviv uvko imo bevaisru oto velo yishma alehem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'hayei olam nata b'derchenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
There's a liminal moment in the celebration of B'nai Mitzvah, and it's that moment in which we call a child to a Torah, that moment in which a child recites the blessing over the study of the reading of Torah in front of the congregation, and the congregation answers to that, not a child anymore, but young person, saying, we trust you, we count you, and we count on you. A child can read from the Torah, but only an adult, in the eyes of the tradition, can recite the blessing over the reading of the Torah. So we will say, Tamot Hamod.
Hamod, Habachura, Habad Mitzvah, Matana Batamar Maftir, Chazak.
Alai, lai, 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 alai, alai, lai, alai, alai, lai, alai, alai, you might want to join, and you can stand. Lai, 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 alai, lai, 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 alai, lai, Please rise, please rise. Lai, 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 amber lai, 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 ada lai, 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 ala lai, lai, amber lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 ya 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 lai, 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 lai.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu Torah emet et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
ותפסו בו אבי ואמו, והוציאו אותו אל זקני עירו ואל שער מקומו. ואמרו אל זקני עירו, בנינו זה סורר ומורה, איננו שומע בקולנו, צלע וסובב. ורגמוהו כל אנשי עירו באבנים, והמת והפסק בדיירתו הרע מקיר בהר, וכל ישראל ישמעו ויראו. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'hayei olam nata b'tohenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
While the Torah is open, we take a moment to acknowledge dear people dealing with illness. If we think of those dealing with illness in their bodies, in their souls, we think of those dealing with addictions, and we think of those carrying grief. If you have a name that you'd like to share with us in this morning of Shabbat, we invite you to do so as we go around the room. Thank you, Diane.
Richard Kennemer, Jack Long, Don Gringorton, Bruce Roberts, Stuart Mass, Mira Engel, Maggie Scardigley, Alfreda Massman, Jan Rose, Jill Becker, Gail Frankel, Gary Bronstein, Melanie Weil, Ed Stein, Lonnie Goldman, Rich Zabridger, Richard Ravage, former member of Shir Hadash, Lauren Janovich, cousin of Joyce Bodick, Pesel Bat Anna Sara, Edna Stone, mother of Eric Stone, Adam Kaufman, Zelig Ben Enya Frima, Howard Erlinger, uncle of Brooke Teig, Estelle Abrams, grandmother of Josh Bernstein, Lillian Murad, mother of Tufik Murad, and Adam Murad, son of Nellie and Tufik Murad.
מי שברך אבותינו ואמותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, שרה רבקה, רחל ולאה, הוא יברך את החולים. May the blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send to all of them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. We're continuing at the blessing for our country and for Israel. Those are found on page 376 and 377.
To unlock the fetters of wickedness and untie the cords of lawlessness, to let the oppressed go free, to break off every yoke. Share your bread with the hungry and take the wretched poor into your home. When you see the naked, give clothing and do not ignore your own kin.
If you banish the yoke from your midst, the menacing hand, the evil speech. If you offer compassion to the hungry and satisfy the famished creature, then your light shall shine in darkness.
O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals.
Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen.
Amen.
O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen.
Is one of the 7 Haftarot of consolation read between Tish B'Av and Rosh Hashanah. This Haftarah conveys a powerful, comforting message. In the first 3 verses of the Haftarah, an exiled Israel is compared to a woman who has never experienced the pleasure of bearing a child. In the middle section of the Haftarah, Isaiah describes how God will bring Israel back to God in mercy. Earlier, Israel was a barren woman. Now Israel is described as a widow who has lost her husband. In the next verses, she is described as a third kind of woman, one whose husband left her. She is promised that her husband, again God, will take her back in love. This week's Torah portion contains a mixture of commandments, including mitzvot related to marriage and divorce. In the Haftarah portion, Israel's exiles are portrayed as divorced women, and God is portrayed as her husband. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar b'vim v'im tovim beratzah v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Haboher Batorah, Uv Moshe Avdo, U Yisrael Amo, Uvimvi'ei Ha'emet, Vatzedek. Roni Akarav Lo Yalada, Vithi Rina, Vizahali Lo Hala, Ki Rabim B'nei Shomema, Mibnei ve'ula, Amar Adonai, Har hivi, Mekom ohole, Viriot, Meshkenotai, Yatu, Altasohi, Ha'arihi, Metarai, Vitedotai, Hazeki, Kiyamin, Usmol, Tifrotzi, Vizar'e, Goyim, Yirash, Va'arim, Neshamot, Yoshivu, Altir'i, Kilo, Tevoshi, Ve'alti Kalmi, Kilo, Takpiri, Ki, Voshet, Alumai, Tishkahi, Beherpat, Almenotai, Lohit Keriod, Ki, Vo'alai, Osai, Adonai, Sevaod, Shemo, Vegoale, Kedosh, Yisrael, Alehem, Kohaaret, Ki Kare, Ki Heisha, Azuva, Ve'isvuat, Ruah, Keva'at, Adonai, Re'eshet, Nishurim, Ki Ha'ames, Timaes, Amar Elohai, Berega, Kedos, Azuvta, Uvrahamim, Godelim, Akabze, Beshetsef, Ketsef, Histarti, Finai Rega, Mimed, Uvhased, Olam, Yitame, Mitamti, Amar Go'alai, Adonai, Kimenoa, Zoli, Asher Nishbati, Me Arvo, Menoa, Od Al Haaret, Kain, Nishbati, Mikzof, Alayi, Umig Orba, Ki, Harim, Yamushu, Vehagvabaot, Hamod, Timoten, Vehasti, Meite, Lo Yamush, Uvrit, Shalomami, Lo Timot, Amar, Merahame, Adonai, Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Tzor kol ha'olamim, Sadiq b'chol hadarot, Ha'el ha'ne'eman, Ha'omer ve'oseh, Hamdaber u'mkayem, Shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, Al ha'torah, ve'al ha'avodah, ve'al ha'nevi'im, ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, Shenatata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Likdusha v'limnuha, Lehavod u'tifared, Al hakol, Adonai Eloheinu, Anachnu modim la, Umvarhim ota, Yibarashimha, Befi kol hai tamid le'olam ba'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen.
As we celebrate this sweet, sweet occasion, we like to take the time to shower Amanda with...
Quick shower. Simin tovu, mazel tovu, mazel tovu, simin tovu, mazel tovu, mazel tovu, la la la, la 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 la. There's lots of candy up here.
Kids, help us clean up.
Kids to take it quickly. ay, 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 Mazel Tov, ay, 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 Simen Tov, oy, 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 Yelanu, Yelanu, Ulechol Am Yisrael, oy, ay, 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 Mazel Tov, oy, ay, 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 Simen Tov, oy, 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 Yelanu, Yelanu, Ulechol Am Yisrael.
Adriel, you're missing the point. You're supposed to take the candy, not put it back.
We'll invite Katie.
Katie, we'd like to invite Katie as a representative from the congregation to present Amanda with a few gifts. Watch out.
That mic, okay. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
I was very honored to be asked to be here today. I first met Amanda when she was in 3rd grade as her teacher in our Sunday program. And I can tell you that the thing I remember most about Amanda at that Sunday mornings was that big smile, which you can see right here. And it was always something I looked forward to coming to on those Sunday mornings. And I am so happy to be here to congratulate you on behalf of the entire congregation. And I have a few gifts to present you with this morning. It's not evening yet. You have a set of prayer books so that you are all set for the High Holy Days, a Kiddush cup. You will also receive a 1-year membership to the JCC and a certificate for a trip to Israel after your confirmation year. So, Mazel Tov, and on behalf of the congregation, congratulations.
So Amanda, my little procrastinator.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I had to say it. So I have never had a student who comes well prepared for their lessons and would do everything they could not to actually do what they had prepared for their lesson. But Amanda, I am immensely proud of you, okay? And I promise that unlike the renting of a U-Haul, sorry, this is a private joke, unlike the renting of a U-Haul, preparing for your bat mitzvah is a lifetime skill. U-Haul is temporary, but practicing and learning for your bat mitzvah, a permanent skill. We hope you will use it wisely, and we hope that you will continue to be an active member of our congregation. Okay.
Thank you.
I think Rabbi Nico wants to say something.
So I noticed that you are opinionated too. And two, because I heard that you are opinionated. I'm also a bit opinionated myself. And I say too because there are other things that you are. And I think that you are wise. I think that you are a wise student, and you are always trying to gain wisdom. And I noticed that in our conversations. I've seen that, but our conversations were particularly interesting. And I want to share with you a wish that I have for any person who is wise and opinionated. And I think that you have it within yourself, and I want to bless you with that so you always find it. It's the ability to keep learning, to keep nurturing yourself, and to keep developing your opinions. Your opinions are important. You have important things to say. And the only way to keep providing important opinions is to keep learning and to be able to rethink. Not only to think once, but to think again and again and again. And I'm sure you will do. We will now return the Torah to the ark. Please rise as we open the ark.
Just play through it. Okay, well then play something else, but don't play this.
Life.
Okay, now go back
Page 586. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא שם חלקנו לייחד את שמו, וגור עלינו להמליך מלכותו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. נאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
If you are observing the first 7 days of the loss of someone, a period of Shiva, we invite you to rise, say their name, and then remain standing. If you are in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days, we invite you to rise, share that person's name, and remain standing. If you are in the first year of mourning, we invite you to rise, share their name, and remain standing. And if you are observing a yort site on this Shabbat, we invite you to rise, share that person's name, and remain standing. The congregation offers its condolences to Stephen Siegel on the death of his friend Arthur Cherdak, John Ivers, Marilyn Handelman, John Correa, Kay Dameron, Nera Marome, Ziba Feruzin, Rosella Newton, Linda Sherry, Fred DeCastro, Sherry Skihan, Larry Eisen, Harry Gross, Michael Taub, David Schwartz, Rhoda Fryman, Eliad Foner Lipsitz, Ron Wolk, Adina Neer, Tamara Noten, Mimi Levy, James C. Price, Colette Kaplowitz, Rita Smith, David Corman, Jay Guadalupe Chavez, Newt Westergren, Saul Bronstein, Emmanuel Scher, Howard Shapiro, Beatrice Siegel, and David Weisberg. The Kaddish can be found on page 598. If it is your custom to rise for the mourner's Kaddish, we invite you to do so at this time. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei kol Beit Yisrael. B'gala uv'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'elam ulamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei kudisha b'richu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Da'amiran b'yoma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Kol yoshvei tevel v'imru.
Amen.
Amen. And Amanda wants to remember Roger Dinat Jr., Richard Wynn, and Edward Mazer.
That's what you have written there. Written that you are making announcements.
So, quick announcements. Tomorrow morning is the beginning of our Kulanu Sunday program. Begins with a bagel breakfast beginning at 8:30, sponsored by our men's club. Everything that you need to know about the High Holy Days you can find on our website. There's plenty to know there. And next Saturday afternoon, beginning at 4:30, we begin our Slichot program. You can find more information about that on our webpage as well.
And we'd like to conclude our service, our prayers together on our feet. So we'd like to invite you to rise. If you are unable to rise on your legs, we invite you to rise on your spirit. We conclude this time of prayer together, asking for shalom, for salam, for wholeness, and for the ability to be builders of peace and a better society. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, ve'al kulam. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, ve'al kulam. Salam. Salam, aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, shalom. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam, aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, shalom. Salam, shalom. Adonai עוז לעמיו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו ואת עמיו בשלום. May God gives us the strength, the power, the willingness to be builders of peace. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, מבורך everyone. עלינו ועל כל העולם, סלם שלום. סלם עלינו ועל כל העולם, סלם שלום. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. סלם עלינו ועל כל העולם, סלם שלום. סלם